friendship recessions, Americans have stopped hanging out. This is a big problem. Socializing rates have plummeted more than 50%. For all age demographics, people just don't want to be around each other anymore. They'd rather be online. And this teen depression is skyrocketing. That's what they're saying. Teen depression is completely skyrocketing. Teens are upset. They are depressed because they're all on the internet and they're getting instant feedback all the time about themselves. It's a tough age to get that kind of feedback. It's difficult. It's peak insecurity when you're a teenager. You're supposed to go away. You're supposed to have a small group of friends, and information is supposed to be filtered. You're not supposed to know everything that everybody thinks about you. So Derek Thompson writes an article here for what, The Atlantic? It looks like The Atlantic.
Yeah.
Why Americans suddenly stopped hanging out. Why did this happen, Derek? Tell us why it happened. In its earliest decades, the United States was celebrated for its citizens' extroversion. Americans weren't just setting out to build new churches and new cities. Their associations were, as de Tocqueville wrote, of 1,000 different types: religious, moral, serious, futile, very general, very limited, immensely large, and very minute. Americans seemed adept at forming social groups, political associations, labor unions, local memberships, da-da-da-da-da. Something's changed in the past few decades. American dynamism declined. Americans moved less from place to place. They stopped showing up at their churches and temples. In the 1990s, the sociologist Robert Putnam recognized America's social metabolism was slowing down. In the book Bowling Alone, we've talked about it millions of times. Well, this is what, here's the deal, and people hate Trump. He brought back, okay, QAnon's not great, but those are people hanging out. Literally. No, they're hanging out. They're hanging out. They're hanging out. People need a shared purpose. They need something to do. You can't just hang out with nothing to do if you're not using drugs. Adults need something to do. So it doesn't have to be QAnon, but that was a very engrossing thing for many people that really got into it and were solving puzzles. There were tons of QAnon meetups. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, everyone's lonely, and then when everyone gets together, you can't put them in jail either. That's what you can't do it. You can't have it both ways. If people are getting together outside of, let's say, the Capitol, you can't just say, oh, look at all these people. They're a violent mob. People hang out, then they become a violent mob. Well, what is it? Are they alone or are they a violent mob? Because if people want to hang out, they need something to do. QAnon gave them something to do. It went to people that were bored. These bored. They were working at a car wash. And they said, do you know that the government has tunnels under Central Park? Kids, they're eating they're drinking adrenochrome from the gland in their neck, and that's what keeps the people in the government living forever. And everyone's like, wait a minute, what? They were checking out some guys buying an air freshener, and their friends letting them know this, and they're drinking their blood, and you go, hold on. Yeah, okay, thank you, making change. And then they go, we're going to go talk about this weekend. I'm going to a meetup. You want to come? And then automatically you're kind of sold. You're like, yeah. And they go, yeah. And all these celebrities are in on it. And a lot of them are body doubles. They've been dead, but they're back. They're body doubles. And JFK Jr.'s not dead. He's coming back, and he's going to kill these. They're going to kill all of these people. They're the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes. They're all going to Guantanamo Bay. They're going to jail. And they're there now. They're actually there now awaiting trial. And then people were like, well, this sounds crazy. And then you go, yeah. A couple of us are getting together this weekend. There's a couple of guys we watch on YouTube, and they've made some shirts. And they got a couple of trailers, a couple of caravans. We're just going out to a public park. You know, a couple of us have tickets. Tim Dillon's doing a show over there, and we're going to go see him. And, you know, but Tim Dillon has a diverse audience. That's what they would say. They would say that. They would go, but it won't only be people like us. There'll be a lot of people there. They go, really? Yeah, oh, it'll be all kinds. And they would say that. They specify that. And then they would say, come, why don't we go hang out? We'll go hang out in the field. And we got merch, and people have pins. And it's all about this shadow war that's going on between different factions of the American intelligence community. Now, automatically, all of this sounds great. You're freeing kids. It's a shadow war. It's like you don't have to do much. It's like the Hunger Games or Narnia or Lord of the Rings. It's any of the fantasy movies. But you don't have to do much. You just got to hang out with some cool cats. And they're going to tell you, they go, we're going to go through the Rothschilds and everything. We're going to go deep through the whole thing. We're going to tell you about the entire thing. And they're like, okay. They were not lonely. The people that got deep into QAnon, deep into it, were not lonely at all. So the problem is because whatever is going to get people hanging out again, it's going to start online. It's going to start online. No one's just going to hang out. I mean, that's weird. If it doesn't start online, what would it even be? Would you just live next to people that you like? Okay, but what are the chances? What are the chances you're living next to someone you like? So no matter what gets you out of your house is going to start on the internet. Hey, we're all doing this Saturday. You want to come? All right. Sounds cool. So QAnon had its negs. I get it. But a lot of people made a lot of lasting friendships through the QAnon movement. There were a lot of lasting friendships through that movement. They didn't, you know? And so what, one might reasonably ask, aloneness is not loneliness. Not only that, one might point out the texture of aloneness has changed. Solitude is less solitary than ever. With all the calling, texting, emailing, work chatting, DMing, posting, we are producing unprecedented terabytes of interpersonal communication. But for Americans in the 2020, solitude, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. By the way, the same people who wrote this article were all guaranteed they were all like, let's lock everything down and you can't go anywhere unless you take 19 vaccines. And then they're like, why is everyone lonely? Why did everyone become lonely? It's so weird that teenage depression's gone up. Why is that? I don't know. Was it because they had to have a drive-through prom? Is that why teenage depression's gone up? Because they had to do a birthday party where their friends would drive by their house and honk? Is that why teenage depression's gone up? I don't know. You took 2 or 3 of the prime years of their lives and destroyed them? You know? Listen to this. I love this. 2023 NBC pollster said, we have never before seen this level of sustained pessimism in the 30-plus year history of the poll. I do think every social crisis in the U.S. could be helped somewhat if people spend a little more time with other people and a little less time gazing into digital content that's designed to make them anxious and despondent about the world. Americans have collectively submitted to a national experiment to deprive ourselves of camaraderie in the world of flesh and steel, choosing instead to grow the time we spend by ourselves gazing into screens wherein actors and influencers often engage in the very acts of physical proximity that we deny ourselves. None of these influencers actually do anything real, by the way. Most of them aren't. They're simulating, but none of it's actually real. They're just doing it for the thing that you're watching. So don't think that. Don't think they're all having great lives and you're just sitting at home. Their lives are equally as lonely. They're just monetizing they're fake interactions for you. But they're not like, oh, wow, it's an amazing. There's people all the time. I always look at people and I go, this person's probably a lonely person, and we all fight that. But we have to find things that we can all do together that are productive and helpful. And that, and those aren't like obvious. They're not obvious what to do with a bunch of people that you don't know. All the things that people do together right now are crazy. It's crazy. It's like furry conventions and neo-Nazi rallies. Every time people gather, it's a nightmare. It's a Vice documentary. Every time there's more than 30 people in one place outside of the Super Bowl, every time there's more than 30 individuals in one place, it's a national news story, and it's never about something good, ever. I'm sorry, but it's true. They just tried to open a diaper spa in New Hampshire where people would gather who are into diaper fetishes. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if we should be out there like that. Maybe people don't need to be out there like that. I got to be honest. It might be okay. This world that we're all fighting might be good. The one of Netflix and press the button and the burrito comes, that might be good. Every time people go out, it's grown adults with wizard hats on and they're trying to animals. I'm telling you, it just might not, it might not be it. I mean, I just read a story about a woman who she was a dog and the husband's filming it. I mean, this is socializing.